So, when we talk about Jeremiah's storm, we're not just talking about a prophecy. No, this is like a full blown sensory experience of a crisis that's about to break. This passage uses some of the most intense imagery in the entire Bible to describe a judgment that isn't just on the horizon anymore, it's already here. And right away, you get this vision of total, overwhelming speed and power. This isn't some slow moving, distant threat. It's clouds that cover everything, chariots moving like a whirlwind, and horses faster than eagles. I mean, this is the language of shock and awe, and it's meant to communicate a feeling of immediate and absolutely unavoidable doom. All right, so to really get our heads around this powerful passage, we're going to break it down into four key movements. We'll kick things off with the wind of judgment. Then we'll look at the final warning, feel the prophet's personal agony in the pain of prophecy, and we'll wrap up with God's diagnosis of a corrupted wisdom. First up, a wind of judgment. And what's so interesting here is that the initial threat isn't described with swords and shields, a typical army. Instead, it's a force of nature, something you just can't reason with or fight against. You see, the text mentions a dry wind, right? But this isn't just any old breeze. It's talking about the sirocco, a very specific and destructive desert wind. This thing is a natural disaster all on its own. It scorches the land, it kills the crops, and it basically brings all life to a screeching halt. It's an image of pure, raw, unproductive destruction. And this contrast makes a really powerful point. A gentle wind can be useful. It's used for winnowing, to fan the useless chaff away and cleanse the good grain. That would be like corrective discipline. But this wind, the sirocco, it's a whole different animal. It's not here to refine anything. It's here to end all resistance. It's a final sentence, kind of like Babylon's irreversible conquest of the whole region after 605 BC. And as if that wind metaphor wasn't enough, verse 13 just keeps stacking on more images of terror. First, you have the clouds, which mean total coverage, nowhere left to hide. Then the whirlwind, signifying complete chaos and a total loss of control. And finally, the eagles, representing deadly speed. Now, historically, this actually reflected the battlefield tactics of the Babylonian army. Their fast-moving cavalry was designed to just overwhelm an enemy psychologically before the fighting even really began. Okay, so after painting this absolutely terrifying picture of an unstoppable force, the prophecy suddenly shifts gears. It offers one last desperate chance to avoid all this. This is the final warning before that metaphorical storm becomes a very literal invasion. And here is that plea. But notice the focus here. It's not just, hey, stop doing bad things. It's wash thine heart from wickedness. The problem is internal, you see, a deep-seated corruption. This is the last recorded appeal in the passage. One final chance before the language of judgment completely takes over for good. So you have to wonder, why weren't they listening? Well, the text points to their vain thoughts. Basically, a whole set of false securities they were clinging to. They were trusting in a military alliance with Egypt. They had this deep-seated belief that the temple in Jerusalem was just invincible, and they were listening to false prophets who kept promising them peace. Their entire sense of security was built on a foundation of pure delusion. And then the vision gets terrifyingly specific. It lays out the actual invasion route. It starts with a voice from Dan in the far north. Then a warning comes from Mount Ephraim in the Central Highlands. This isn't some threat in the distant future anymore. This signals that the enemy is already inside the borders and marching south to the capital. It's happening now. And that final step, the arrival of watchers, that term would have sent a shiver down the spine of anyone in Jerusalem. It meant one thing, a siege. We're talking total encirclement, constant surveillance, and absolutely no possibility of escape. And this was an accurate depiction of Babylonian siege tactics. They'd cut off all the food and water to literally starve a city into submission. The prophecy makes it crystal clear who is responsible for all of this. It says, "Thy way and thy doings have procured these things." This judgment isn't random at all. Babylon is just the instrument being used. The root cause is Judah's own behavior. Their destruction is self-inflicted. And now, for a really dramatic shift, the perspective turns from the entire nation to the prophet himself. See, Jeremiah doesn't just report on this disaster from a safe distance. He experiences it, physically, in his own body. I mean, just listen to this language. It's so visceral, so physical.
my bowels, I am pained at my very heart." He's describing a gut-wrenching anxiety, actual chest pain, a feeling of internal collapse. He's feeling the entire nation's trauma as his own physical agony.
And Jeremiah's prophetic pain mirrors a brutal historical reality. The actual siege of Jerusalem wasn't a quick affair. It lasted for 2 agonizing years, from 588 to 586 BC. That's 2 years of starvation, disease, and constant unending fear. So when Jeremiah says he can't hold his peace because he hears the sound of the trumpet, he's talking about that relentless state of alarm. Can you imagine living with that kind of dread every single day? He is literally embodying the message, carrying the pain of his people before it even fully arrives. This brings us to the final verse of our passage, and it's basically God's own diagnosis of the root problem. It's a statement about the people's moral and ethical state, and it is absolutely devastating. Here it is. They are wise to do evil, but to do good, they have no knowledge. Just think about that for a second. This is a complete moral inversion. They haven't just made a few mistakes, they have perfected the art of corruption and injustice. They've become experts in doing wrong, so much so that doing the right thing has become a totally foreign concept to them. This implies something much deeper than just individual sin. It's talking about a total societal breakdown, an ethical collapse where the very knowledge of goodness has been lost. And the text makes it clear. When a society reaches this point, judgment isn't just possible, it becomes inevitable. And so we're left with this final, chilling question that echoes far beyond ancient Judah. The text shows us what happened then, a storm of judgment that no wall could possibly stop. But it forces us to ask ourselves, what happens today when a society becomes wise in doing evil and forgets how to do good?